Okay, well, those are our first six meta-apologetic questions that our authors looked at, and now we look at the six apologetic questions that each method seeks to provide a kind of a commonality answer between all the different people. Apologetic questions deal with issues commonly raised by non-Christians, and so they'll consider taken from a Reformed apologist answering questions about the Bible, Christianity and other beliefs, the existence of God, the problem of evil, the credibility of miracles, and the claims of Jesus Christ himself.
All right, good. So let's start with the Bible. Why should we believe in the Bible? Well, notice both classical and evidentialist apologists, for them, the apologetic argument first establishes the existence of God and his revelation in the crucified and risen Jesus Christ, and then culminates in the inspiration of the Bible. So they start with, we have to show that God exists, and then that the Bible is inspired. Reformed apologists, specifically presuppositionalists, turn the argument around. They say the Bible should be believed as the starting point for all knowledge. That is, the apologist should argue that unless the God who speaks in Scripture is real, then human knowledge is without any intelligible basis, right? In other words, how can you make sense of anything with regard to knowledge, period, unless you have a foundation, and God is that foundation. And so instead of trying to argue to the inspiration of Scripture, they argue based on the Scripture, you can get to various truth claims.
Right. All right. Well, then we look at the second one, which is kind of the well, don't all roads lead to the same God? Aren't we all just religious people on this walk of life, trying to do the best we can? And it would be wrong for us to say that there's just one path that leads. Well, except unless you take the Christian view, and then there's literally is only one path. So. But classical apologists argue that religious pluralism is irrational because the different religions have different worldviews and different conceptions of God. Well, once we start talking about worldviews, it seems like we're treading a little bit on our feet, but that's okay. And evidentialists argue that religious pluralism does not consider the fact that only Christianity offers verifiable factual evidence of God taking the initiative to make himself known to us, particularly in the incarnation and also in the resurrection.
Right. So notice classical apologetics says this. There's seems to be religious pluralism, but the problem is that various religious claims contradict one another. And so if you say all religions lead to God, that's irrational, because if one claims that Jesus Christ rose from the dead and the other claims that he didn't rise from the dead, well, you can't say both claims are true, right? And so that's an irrational position, says the classical apologist. The evidentialist, on the other hand, says, well, let's look at the facts of history with regard to Christianity. And based on those factual claims, right, factual evidence of God and that sort of thing, we can show that Christianity is the true religion. And as you mentioned, Reformed apologists, don't buy either of these particular approaches.
Right. It's almost like the evidentialists say, well, let's presuppose that Christianity is the right one. What do we see from Christianity is true? And so, yes, the Reformed apologists generally consider these points to be basically correct, but also inadequate.
Right. And so what do the Reformed apologists do then? Well, they respond to religious pluralism, our book suggests, in two ways. First, it is really a non-existent position, right? The religious pluralist is actually assuming an exclusivist stance based on their religious perspective, right? That's either they stated or they unstated. So that is a religious perspective. There is no neutral ground. They're basing their claim that pluralism is the case based on a particular religious perspective. And so that's an exclusivist position, says the Reformed apologists. Secondly, the Reformed apologists, like Clark and Van Til, argue that only Christian theism presents a worldview or a transcendent point of reference in terms of which knowledge and ethics are possible or intelligible. And so non-Christian religion make man, or perhaps chance, ultimate. Christianity alone makes God truly ultimate, right? So there's a basic difference between the two approaches and basis for truth claims.
Right.